turn it over to Mayor McNish.
We're going to go ahead and reopen our public hearing. So this is a public hearing on application of Countryside Property LLC for zoning change pursuant to section 430 of the Marshfield Municipal Code for a property located at 439 South Locust Street on the northwest corner of South Locust and East 2nd Street. The applicant seeks to rezone from R1, one family residence, to B3, general business district. If anyone would like to speak in favor or in opposition of this rezoning, we ask that you please make sure that you are accurately named on Zoom, first and last name. You can change that by hovering over the top right corner of your box. You'll find the 3 little dots. Click on that and click rename, and please use your first and last name. And then after you are correctly named, please go down to the chat feature and type your name in here, or tell us that you would like to speak on the matter, and we will leave this open for 3 minutes to allow you time to do that.
Okay, Catherine Reed wishes to speak.
Okay, go ahead and allow Catherine Reed to speak.
Good evening. I hope everybody can hear me.
We can.
Great. I am the attorney for Countryside, and my client is also on the Zoom call. We were both present with the planning and zoning not too long ago to discuss this property. We believe all of the code requirements have been met regarding posting and notification. As you know from your minutes, I'm sure planning and zoning has sent you some recommendations. We're asking today to rezone the subject property from an R1 to a B3. In reviewing the notes, I'm sure you can see we had some discussions about alternatives in classifying this property as an I1. We understand that there's moves to make the guidelines broader. However, we understand that those would be applicable to property sizes less than 1 acre. The subject property at 439 South Locust is greater than 1 acre, and the publications note that it's a 1.3 acre. So we wouldn't benefit from those broader guidelines. Therefore, the best alternative for this piece of property, we believe, is a B3 for the general business district. I think that's appropriate given the location and the proximity next to another storage unit area that's owned by my client. I'm sure you all can see in looking at the map, there's several different designations in that area. Having done these meetings, we understand that there's always a concern for spot zoning. I've heard that, and I certainly understand and appreciate where you all are coming from when considering making zoning changes. In this circumstance, we believe it would be appropriate, however, given the industrial, not far from it, an R1, the already existing business classifications. And we think that given the fact that there's one right next door, which is owned by my client, is a good measure of what to expect. And we certainly hope that you all consider our request and rezone this property from an R1 to a B3.
Thank you. Are there any others that requested to speak?
There is not yet.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and call our regular session to order. Roll call, please. Board of Alderman Rob Foster.
Here.
East Ward Alderman Mark Bowers.
Here.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Vicky Montgomery.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Here. For a moment of silent prayer or reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the
Republic
republic for which it stands,
under
one
God,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And in response to the coronavirus pandemic and pursuant to current regulations for the city of Marshfield to abide by social distancing, this meeting is held by Zoom for the public. The elected officials are allowed to choose their modality, and select staff are also located here with us, and others have chosen to participate online. We will now go to the minutes, which were included in your packet. I apologize for not getting this to you sooner, but under the mayor goals. I lost them. Winter goals, the last one for economic development training. Can we just add a note that we're gonna hold off until the new board members come on board to do that? Is there any other items for the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve the minutes with the added.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next in your packet is expenditures and financial reports. Monica is available if you have any questions on these items. If you're satisfied with your review, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Departmental reports are included here. Were there any questions? If not, we will move to a proclamation for Ronald McDonald House Week. Proclaiming Ronald McDonald House Week in the city of Marshfield, whereas Springfield's 2 Ronald McDonald houses have provided a home away from home and an invaluable source of hope and comfort for families of seriously ill children who must travel far from home for medical treatment. And whereas the 2 Ronald McDonald houses located in Springfield, Missouri, allow their guests to maintain close contact with their seriously ill children by providing a secure and supportive environment at no required cost. And whereas the Ronald McDonald House near Cox South and the house at Mercy Kids have served the needs of 514 Webster County families, 212 of which are residents of Marshfield, Missouri. And whereas on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, 62 McDonald's restaurants and various other locations will begin showing their support by asking customers to share their heart by adopting a $1, $5, and $20 to the Ronald McDonald House Charities of the Ozarks through the Share a Heart campaign. And whereas The following generous contributors have provided sponsorship funding and underwritten the costs for the Share a Heart campaign. McDonald's of the Ozark, Great Southern Bank, Mid-Am Metal Forming, and KY3 Television. And whereas McDonald's of Marshfield is a participant in the Share a Heart campaign, which will continue through February 28th, 2021. Now, therefore, I, Natalie McNish, Mayor of the City of Marshfield, Missouri, hereby proclaim February 8th through February 14th, 2021 as Ronald McDonald House Week. All right, and into unfinished business. A COVID-19 update, and I believe Michael Taylor is on the call.
Yes.
Yes, good evening. So again, some pretty positive news. Kind of start at the top of the report, which is dated the 26th. Much of this data is from the 26th because we as a task force report to the commission on Tuesdays, but I have updated some of this for you this evening. Fix my view, there we go. Okay, start on item number 4. The Marshfield Family Clinic, in conjunction with Webster County COVID-19 Task Force, obtained 975 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. Marshfield Family Clinic, in conjunction with Webster County COVID-19 Task Force, has held 3 total vaccination sites. First one being for phase 1A eligible persons was held at Marshfield Family Clinic on January 13th, and 225 persons were vaccinated that day. The second site was held for phase 1A and 1B tiers 1 and 2 on January 22nd, also at Marshfield Family Clinic, and approximately 300 persons were vaccinated at that time. And then the third one was held at, actually held by Marshfield Family Clinic in Seymour at the YMCA on Tuesday, January 26th, and approximately 150 persons were vaccinated there. Dr. Robinson has also done his patients at the clinic for a total of 1,112 persons total vaccinated to date in Webster County. And realizing the offset there, the 975 versus the 1,112, and that was because some of the dosage vials actually had 6 vaccinations instead of 5 per dose per vial, so allowed for more people to be vaccinated. Status of local hospitals, and this was as of the 26th. Cox had 87 admitted, Mercy had 58. Total from Webster County was 10, and the hospital capability score is still holding at 5.1. As far as testing, a drive-through test site was held on the 25th of January, 9 to 11 at the fairgrounds. 32 persons were tested with 10 positive results, which would indicate a 31.25 positivity rate. We are seeing fewer and fewer people show up at the testing sites. Task force recommendations and considerations, none at this time. Current vaccine phase is tier 1A, tiers 1A and tier 1B, tier 1 and 2, which includes long-term care facility residents and staff, healthcare workers, patient-facing and non-patient facing, first responders, emergency management, emergency services, and some public works, and high-risk individuals age 65 and older and or have chronic illnesses. As far as the current situation, this was updated as of today. CDC is reporting 25,456,670 cases in the United States. There's been a total of 427,626 deaths thus far. Currently, Missouri DHS is reporting 454,573 cases in Missouri, with 6,720 deaths out of 4,106,829 persons tested. World Health is reporting 100,455,529 cases worldwide, with 1,166,440 deaths. According to the health unit, we have had 2,833 cases in Webster County. We have 61 patients that are currently ill, 20 of which are in the central region of Webster County. 98 patients have been hospitalized and 2,729 have recovered. Webster County has had 43 deaths related to COVID-19. The cases by age and deaths by age are listed out there. Changes in statistics, cases have increased by 214 since the last time I spoke to you. Active cases have decreased by 137, and deaths have not increased since we last spoke. The schools, Marshfield is reporting 3 positives with 59 quarantined. Rogersville is reporting 3 positives with 4 quarantined. Fordland is reporting 5 quarantined. Seymour is reporting 6 quarantined. Niangua is reporting 1 quarantined. And the rest of the schools either did not report or did not have any of either. State action since last briefing, the state has expanded the healthcare providers covered in phase 1A tier 1 and open phases 1B tier 1 and 2. County actions, we have purchased vaccine freezers for the cold storage of COVID-19 vaccine. One of those is on the north side of the county and one of those is on the south side of the county. COVID cases we're still seeing an increase. Since the 12th, when I last reported to you, the cases have increased by 374. Marshfield still ranks number 1 in Webster County for number of positive cases, both active and cumulative. Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services reports that the number of cases in Missouri has increased by 9,180 and 56 deaths in the past 7 days. Now that is important, as at one point not too long ago, we saw that number up around 30,000 every 7 days. So that is a downward trend that seems to be continuing, which is overall positive. Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services reports that Webster County is number 28 out of 117 jurisdictions in the state for the total number of cases. That is the report that I have for you all tonight, unless you have some questions for me.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions from any of the board members? Well, thank you again, Michael.
No problem. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the SKEEP grant agreement. And Sam, I understand this is tabled again tonight, but it is actually moving forward.
Yeah, so I did hear back from DNR that it is moving forward. And so it's just they're processing paperwork. So it looks like it's all through. It's just going to take a little bit of time on their end. So we're basically waiting on a piece of paper and then we'll bring this back to you.
Fantastic. So we will skip items 2 and 3 and unfinished business and continue to new business. And item 1 is the War Festival. And I understand we have Peggy Yates on the call with us.
Yes. Can you hear us?
I'm unmuted. Okay.
Yep, we're ready.
Hopefully the rest of the Zoom meeting is going to go really well and got your bugs fixed. We have dedicated June the 19th of 2021 for having the Carnival Festival. The county's already approved it. And the next step is getting your approval for that date before I start insurance and all the other licenses I need to do. Is there any questions?
Have you guys had a lot of interest, Sean, this year?
Yes, we have. We've got a lot of people on board that it's going to make it lots of fun. Bring some revenue to Marshfield for that weekend. You know, we get something positive I don't really want to say, but we've got some interesting. It'll be the same. It's just going to be bigger and hopefully more volunteers. We'll like to have your volunteering for us.
There are generally some road closures that in coordination with this event.
Ed said,
Peggy, are you guys asking to close all of the roads down, or what portions of the roads are you guys asking to close down?
at this point, we're just now starting. We're asking for the square like we did 2 years ago. And also we're going to be doing the same configuration that we had. On the east of the square will be the vendors. Because we're having so much interest, we're going to have instead of that one row of vendors, we'll have like a carnival on the east side of the square on both sides of the street. On the north side of the square will be a good easement for getting through for emergency. The south side's a barbecue, and the west side is the cars.
Basically, the city will be looking at closing it.
Yeah.
The whole
We're
thing.
looking at that and then having the waste containers on the north side and the porta potties. Probably that we're going to need 2 locations for porta potties. We didn't have enough I'm saying last year, but it was 2 years ago. So yes.
From the board to close the square.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
All right,
Thank you.
did you get that, Peggy?
I did. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you there. And I'll be working with you a lot.
All right, thank you.
We're being positive that this COVID thing will be on the downwards. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And we're going to move on to the report from planning and zoning, and in items 2 through 6 of our new business are all planning and zoning items. And we have Scott Hansen on the call with us to kind of walk us through this. Scott, are you ready?
Yep.
Unmute.
Are you there, Scott?
All
Are you
right,
there?
now I can hear you. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Item just to confirm is the rezoning. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. You were breaking up there pretty bad, Scott. But
Okay.
yeah, the
All
first
right.
thing the rezoning is.
Okay, I'm going to move to a better location in my house, closer to my server. Give me just a second. Everybody see the screen though?
Yes.
Yeah, house tour.
Okay. Right. Okay. So the locator map of the subject tract is on the screen, and I'll just be very brief because I know that you got a lot of this in your packet. As you heard earlier during the public hearing, the property owner is Countryside Property LLC, and this property size is 0.62 acres. In regards to surrounding land uses, to the north, it's zone B1, and that's Mr. Millard's self-service storage facility to the north. To the south, across the street, there are some single-family homes. Those are zoned R1. To the east is also zoned R1, as well as B1, neighborhood commercial district R1, and that's a single-family home that way. I wanted to show you the list of uses for this site. The allowed uses or the permitted uses are in black. So on the left-hand corner is the existing R1 zoning, and in the right-hand column is the proposed B3 zoning. Those uses in black are allowed outright, so no further review from without any review by the Planning and Zoning Commission or the Board of Alderman. The red ones are conditional use permits. Applicant would have to come in that, and that would be reviewed by the P&Z, and there could be conditions applied for those in red. So even though the applicant's asking for self-service storage facilities, just keep in mind that the rezoning to B3 could allow all those on the right outright, and those in red via a conditional use permit. This is a slide that the mayor asked for me to include in the presentation. This was provided by Mr. Millard's lawyer during her presentation, and we wanted to show how the setbacks are a little bit different in B3 versus R1, and why he selected B3 zoning instead of the I1 zoning. And I'm going to just jump to the comparison slide here. So the zoning setbacks are a little bit different. They're a little bit greater in the I1 zoning district. So that's one of the reasons Mr. Millard selected the B3 zone, because he can get a better fit for his property on his 0.62 acres. There is a set of review criteria in the code, and I'll just go over these really quick. We believe that the current proposed use to B3 is suitable. Neighbors can expect the rezoning may result in more traffic and noise to the area. The property has been vacant since 2009. There was a dilapidated single-family structure that was removed. It could probably develop under R1, but that may be impacted due to the I1 and B1 uses to the north, and the just generally the light industrial district to the north. Generally no concerns in regards to impacts of public health, safety, and welfare. Conformance with the comp plan. This was, again, as Mr. Miller's lawyer illustrated, this is where we did get hung up a little bit. We don't, in short, even though the growth plan shows this area R1, staff doesn't have an objection of extending, that zoning district down to the south. The best place to cut off a zoning district is not mid-block, but at a street. So we don't have an objective with that, but I did want to note that our concern and our recommendation, original recommendation to Mr. Millard, was to consider I1 zoning because most of the zoning to the north is I1. So we want to keep, the city out of trouble in regards to spot zoning because there's multiple uses zoning on this tract. There's potentially confusing setbacks and land uses. This reason will not resolve the grandfathered status of the existing self-service storage facility to the north, which is zoned B1. And again, we would just like to see the I1 zoning of adjoining tracts. From a 30,000 foot level, something that if the Board of Aldermen think that this area south of the tracks down to 2nd Street is going to transition away from I1 to a commercial district, it's better not to do that haphazardly. We should talk about having a plan for that in the years to come, rather than it just happening and just taking these one at a time. In terms of impacts on public services and utilities, don't have any concerns. So the recommendation from staff and the Zoning Commission is, while I1 is preferred, we don't have an objection to the B3. The P&Z recommended unanimously for approval of the rezoning with one abstention. And just keep in mind that the self-service storage use in B3 is a conditional use, and he'll have to come back and get that. So there could be, again, some conditions attached to that when the time comes. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Yeah, so I've got a question, but it may come into play later on when they, as you said, come back for a conditional use before they proceed with the project, or bring it up to see if they may proceed with the project. And so if it's going to come up later, just say so, that's fine. But my question is about water detention. with the extra roof there. The roof on the one that is already existing to the north yeah, I drove by today, and just with snow melt, there's a considerable amount of accumulated water, standing water on that lot. And so if there's a rooftop there and surfaces that suddenly are turning that water to other residences, I'd be concerned about that. So either in this process or in a future process, will that be addressed for detention or some way to be sure that we don't push extra runoff load to the neighboring lots?
I'll just say that's an excellent question. You're exactly correct. Not only will there be more rooftops, but we anticipate that everything will be paved. But Mr. Miller did show in a conceptual site plan that he will detain water from the expanded use on the subject tract. He shows a location for a detention basin, and that is a city requirement. So we fully anticipate that requirement will be adhered to.
Very good. Thanks.
Sure.
Would you like to go ahead and talk about the replat, Scott?
Sure. This is a different location in the city. It's off the square, and go to that real quick. This is a replat of the Bell property, AKA a final plat. So this is lot 1 and 3, block 4 of Hermitage Road of the original plat of the city, which is pretty interesting in itself. The property is zoned B2, and it's approximately a 1/4 acre. And it's on the southwest corner of South Marshall and East Madison. So in short, when lot 1 redeveloped with the concrete block building, lot 3 to help support it. So as a result, the applicant had to put in a structure to help support the wall. And when he did that, the support structure encroached onto lot 1. And here's a picture you can maybe see back there in the corner toward the back of the building, how there's some columns that are helping to support that wall. And those encroach onto lot 1 by about 3 feet. So it's a 3 foot by 81 area, or 245 square feet. So we're adjusting the lot line in order to make those support columns all the way on to lot 3. That's all it is just moving a lot line, but we did have to do a replat in order to accommodate that. So P&Z recommended approval, no variances associated with it, no objection to the change.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read 3 and 4 so we can move on from there. Number 3, which will start with bill number 2021-06, is going to be the rezoning. We'll start there. Bill number 2021-06, an ordinance to amend section 400.040 of the municipal code of the city of Marshfield, Missouri, being the section of the municipal code dealing with zoning and relating to the adoption of a zoning map, setting forth the boundaries of the various zoning districts by changing certain zoning district boundary lines so as to change a certain area as shown on said map from R1 single family residence district to B3 general business district, and to further provide for re-adoption of the zoning map as amended.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Second reading. Bill number 2021-06, an ordinance to amend section 400.040 of the municipal code of the city of Marshfield, Missouri, being a section of the municipal code dealing with zoning and relating to the adoption of a zoning map, setting forth the boundaries of the various zoning districts by changing certain zoning district boundary lines so as to change a certain area as shown on said map from R1 Single Family Residence District to B3 General Business District, and to further provide for a readoption of the zoning map as amended.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster. Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Emery, Lee,
We'll move on to the replat. Bill number 2021-07, an ordinance approving Bell property, a replat of lots 1 and 3, block 4 of Hermitage Row of Blocks, original city of Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Second reading. Bill number 2021-07, an ordinance approving Bell property, a replat of lots 1 and 3, block 4 of Hermitage Row of Blocks, original city of Marshfield, Webster County, Missouri.
Move to approve.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Yes. I think he's called me.
Okay. Thank you. And Scott, do you want to walk us through the definitions?
I'm sorry, you dropped out. Did you say the ordinance?
Yes.
On the definitions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah, no problem. I took it away so that we can get them on camera on the vote.
Yep, totally understand. Let's see if I can, there we go. So this is the first of two here that are paired together. This one is creating a definition for buffer, which is a new term that's going to be found in the next ordinance, Ordinance 1981, that will follow, basically defining what a landscape buffer is. And the term is variable enough that it can apply in various situations. So just, provide a definition for buffer. That's all this does.
You go ahead and lead into the landscape ordinance.
Okay, sure. The next one is ordinance number 1981. So this is a revision to the landscape ordinance. Marshfield has an existing landscape ordinance that was adopted about 2 years ago, but over time, the P&Z and staff came to realize that what's good for commercial districts may not be a good fit for industrial districts. So that's why we're amending this section of the code, which is 410-146. So it reorganizes the code so that residential and commercial zoning, landscaping and screening requirements are broken out separately from I-1 and I-2 landscaping and screening requirements. So there's 5 sections here that are basically unchanged. Section 1 basically just these are all existing and they are unchanged. Basically, it describes what's required in a landscape plan. Section B describes, sets the requirements. Section C details landscaping for residential and commercial zones. And Section E details parking lot landscaping and what those requirements are. So the change really is in Section D, which I'll describe here very briefly. So in short, Section D requires landscaping along street frontages in the industrial zones, and developers have three options. They can either choose a 10-foot wide buffer with 1 shade tree and 7 shrubs every 50 feet, or they can go to a 6-foot high berm with 1 shade tree and 3 shrubs every 50 feet, or they can do the inundation thereof. And then residential zone, there's a requirement for screening only in those cases as well. This would normally be along the rear property line, but some cases maybe along the side property line. Again, 3 options. Option 1 is a 6-foot high berm, landscape berm. The second option is a 6-foot high wall or fence. It would be 100%, screened. You wouldn't be able to see through it. And then the third is the applicant developer could come up with an alternative that is equivalent to one of these two. So for example, if they have a 50-foot wide area of untouched trees, the Board of Alderman could consider that as a reasonable alternative to a wall or a berm. Just trying to come up with an example. So in both cases, we give options to the developers if the ones that are shown here aren't going to work. And that's pretty much the ordinance in a nutshell.
Any questions on the definition or the changes to the ordinance? Bill number 2021-08, an ordinance amending chapter 400 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to zoning code general provisions, the amending section 400.080 definitions.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Second reading, bill number 2021-08, an ordinance amending chapter 400 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to zoning code general provisions, the amending section 400.080 definitions. Roll call.
Second. Yes.
Yes.
Bill number 2021-09, an ordinance amending chapter 410 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to supplementary zoning regulations by renaming and amending section 400.146 landscape plans.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Yes.
yes,
Second reading, bill number 2021-09, an ordinance amending chapter 410 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to supplementary zoning regulations by renaming and amending section 400.146 landscape plans.
Move to approve.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
yes,
Thank you very much, Scott.
You're welcome. Yeah, if there's anything further, I'll let you guys go for tonight.
I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Right.
Okay, item number 7 is the first section of the employee manual. As stated last meeting, one of my goals is to try to get through our employee manual and refresh and update the information that we provide our employees in this. This is the first section as it is drafted. It has been reviewed by interim city administrator Sam Roast, city clerk Karen Roast. It's also been reviewed by Chief Fannin and by our council, Paul Link. Paul also provided me a copy of another city's employee manual that has some other things we can consider. So I'm going to be looking through those, looking for additional information and kind of working with him. But I wanted to get this in front of you for this first section and see if you had any input so that I can kind of conclude this section and start on the next for next month. Did any of the board members have any input on this particular section?
So, in general, as we go section by section, I'd be interested in being provided with a copy of our most current version of our policies.
Okay, Karen, can you help with that? I appreciate it. Karen will send it, or would you like it on paper? Do you want to print it?
Yeah, both would be fine. And then also the same on the not this one, but our most recently adopted organizational chart, are presented or otherwise.
Okay.
And then do you anticipate that we are sort of just going along section by section as you're reviewing, and then we'll come together in a work session, or do you want to try to hammer each section out like tonight? Is it your intent that we would try to hammer it all out tonight on this section, and then?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just looking for that now. And then I'm going to kind of conclude this as a draft and go on to the next section. Yes, we can definitely have a work session where we can hammer out additional details if that's necessary.
Okay, so the reason I think that would be good is, some of the questions I have may be answered if we had the whole thing. And I'll give you one example, which is probably, I probably know the answer to this, but without having this full draft or the previous draft that this is being used as a basis for, to then to get to something that we want to adopt going forward, is this under, for example, general purposes on the third page, or general policies, rather, refers to a grievance procedure which we'll use and will be used to deal with certain issues. And this isn't the only place, but so I'm assuming, but I shouldn't. I mean, do we have that grievance procedure to refer to, or to use as a guide? It's not the only place that refers to it here in this section.
Correct. And we don't have it in the general policies section. It would be within the other section of the manual. So yes, you're right. That's the reason I'm not asking for action, because you're right. You're going to need the whole thing before you can tell things.
Okay. So I mean, I didn't know how much to go into tonight. If we're going to review it collectively, as much as just keep up with sort of what you're presenting as you go. What's your preference?
I don't think we'll do any approvals until it's all together. We're just looking for input. So if there was something in that you did not like,
I guess I'm looking for a definition of input. I mean, are we going to take care of typos or redundancy or things like that? Or are we going to do that in a separate sort of time where it's all together? When you look for input, what specifically do you mean by input?
specific policies that you thought needed additional work. And typos and such, I can also take care of at a later time.
So just because I'm not quite sure, I'll start in on some stuff and then you let me know, okay, well, that's not what we're talking about. Because I for example, on the 5th page, and there are a couple other places, there's reference to faculty and to deans and so forth, and I assume we're not going to have that.
Okay.
But there are four places that I found so far that have reference to that. I think it's important to maybe keep. Let's go back to page 3, which is general policies, number 1, and just at the start of 1.1. I think it might be more appropriate, and also in keeping with other similar statements on some of the other items in the policies and that we're using, to state something like the city of Marshfield seeks, or maybe instead of seeks, endeavors to promote a community of respect and diversity, instead of the way I see it written there. And that would hold consistent with other sections of the policy that deal with other things that we want to strive to, or endeavor to, or seek to.
Okay.
That statement, I feel, is too is the right word, declaratory. When that's an ongoing endeavor, I think.
Okay. No, I like,
And again, just keeps in sort of in the same tone as the other places where similar statements are made. I do also think that on the same page, down toward the bottom under 1.2, the prohibition of discrimination and harassment. If you go to the last sentence of the first paragraph of that section, seems like it'd be more appropriate for this, and again, in keeping with certain other things that we don't expect to happen, that maybe we'd say the city will not tolerate discrimination nor harassment of any form. And then, and that too is, I think, more in keeping with having a rule, and with, if you refer to 1.4 as an example, where that kind of language is used, with regard to drug-free workplace, I think you'll see that language there. I also think, still on the same page, page 3, go back up to 1.1. The last sentence of the first paragraph is it's kind of a, to me, it's enough of a difference, a specific point that might be its own standalone paragraph, even if it's a sentence long. It's sort of a little bit separate, enough separate from what precedes that it's sort of a different notion, and probably deserves to have its own paragraph there. I find that in several places, there's a redundancy of things that maybe could be listed right at the front of the policies. For example, in some places it's literally almost back to back in sentences, but it is it has to do with not discriminating against sex, including or protected classes other than sex, including race and color and national origin and religion and age and so forth. Probably would serve to just early on in the statement of what these policies are for, is just to state all of these policies are regardless of who we're talking about, and eliminate some of that redundancy, because quite literally, I think there was a place here where that sentence was reworded but was back-to-back sentences. Same page, page 4 under 1.2.1, discrimination and harassment. I'm not sure, but I think I understand. If you look at the last sentence that's highlighted in green, it says new employees must complete both training within 30 days. So I bet that's both training courses or classes. Is it probably an omission of a word, or is it just supposed to complete training and not have the word both? You might look at it one way or the other and sort that one out. If you go to page 6, 1.2.4, zero tolerance of workplace violence. I think you can get right to the point by skipping that whole first sentence. I think it reads clear and straight to the point. I think the first sentence is unnecessary. And then I wasn't too sure about, on page 7, 1.5 alcohol drug abuse policy.
Yes.
First of all, I wonder if, and I recognize and acknowledge that it may be very necessary to have the two different sections there, 1.4 and 1.5, and I accept that. But otherwise, it seems like those could be combined to one. It's not that big of a deal. But under 1.5, I'm not really comfortable. I don't understand why we would be talking about something we don't allow and prohibit, but then say it's the only place in this sort of grouping of items where we're saying we prohibit something. It's the only place that uses language like circumstances accompanying each individual case will be considered. And this seems like the strangest of any of the others, like sexual harassment or you name it. It seems like the least of the places that there are sort of reasons you might be doing drugs at work or drinking at work. So I don't know. You might take a look at that and try to, because it conveys wiggle room. And
A resolution on that one. And maybe we need to fix the resolution at the same time. So that's a good catch.
It's the top of page 8. It's the end of 1.6 tobacco use. We've had a lot of discussion. We came to a point where we discussed this thoroughly in the last 5 years, probably. And I wonder if it might make sense to consider right there in that last full sentence that goes across the page, Marshfield, okay, except in such areas that are designated by the city, might be important to put except in such areas that are designated and clearly marked. So there's no confusion about, and there's no arguing, there's no, well, I thought, but in clearly marked areas, and there shouldn't be that many anyway. I think that's what we came to. We may not, but if we've got an exception, I think it's only in one place that came to the board. Right below that, 1.8, about the fourth line down that starts no employees may use. I have a feeling that's instead of and, is that supposed to be any disclosure of confidential?
Yeah.
Next page, page 9, 1.13, possession of firearms. We cover a lot of stuff, but it doesn't seem to really include, and this may be one of those things that also could be right in the front end of this policy booklet, is not only are we speaking to people of all sorts, for short, but when we're talking about these policies, they are everywhere. that have to do with the city, because really there's no, in another place, on one of the other sections, it refers to this prohibition being including vehicles. For some reason here, it doesn't say vehicles. Probably ought to, but we probably ought to just have a blanket statement in the front saying all these policies pertain to properties, buildings, and grounds and vehicles that are city owned. So that's my feedback so far,
Okay.
except for one other. There's just one more on the very first page, just for understanding, where we're talking about, this is other board / commissions / committees.
Okay.
And in that last sentence, it says, with the exception of Parks Director who reports to the Park Board and City Administrator, city employees do not report to any of these groups and should not take direction from a board, commission, committee member without first consulting the City Administrator. Should they take, it's kind of moot on the mayor. Should they be taking direction from the mayor or from the City Administrator? My feeling is it's from the City Administrator in conjunction with the mayor, but through the City Administrator, or we'll get sideways like we were once upon a time.
Okay.
So the mayor ought to be grouped with the board and the commission and the committees. We don't have a strong mayor, so I think that's the way we need to respect it. And for those that don't maybe know that terminology, I'm not referring to Natalie. I'm referring to a class of governance of the city. There are cases where there's a strong mayor who and not cases where there's a strong mayor that basically asserts how much power they have. And we're not a strong mayor. And so that's probably where that grouping needs to be.
Nope, I made that note.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Any other changes? Okay, I hope next month to provide another section, and then also to hopefully schedule a work session in March on this topic. By then, I hope to have the rest of it wrapped up. The next item is the rescheduling the first meeting date in April, and we may want to reschedule the first and the second. Karen, you're going to have to help me here because I've forgotten a little bit. We have learned that there are new voting requirements for Mr. Whitehurst, where he is required to wait. Help me out.
With the military that overseas, he has to wait until the first Friday, or until the Friday following the election to certify the election results. So he has to wait till noon on that Friday.
Okay.
So
in this particular month, second Thursday falls 2 days after the election, and the day before he can possibly certify the results. So we are asking, instead of meeting on April 8th, April 22nd, to meet on April 15th and April 29th. It will still allow us to meet every other week, including it doesn't actually cause a problem with May. So that changed?
That's fine with me.
Yep.
That's sufficient.
7:30, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, do we want to continue 6:30s or the 6:30 today was a whoopsie on the advertisement that went out for that public hearing. That's why we ended up at 6:30. Do we want to continue 7:30?
Yes.
Okay. So we will continue 7:30, and when the new board comes up, we will bring that up again to make sure that still works with everybody's schedule. So 7:30 for now. All right, the last item on here is the Chamber of Commerce contract. This was to you in December. There were some changes the board felt were needed to be addressed. Paul made changes to that for us. This was then presented to the Chamber of Commerce by Sam, kind of talked over it. They understood the context. They've had time to work through it. They have requested one change. And so if you will look on page 3 of this contract, section 7, subsection B, the last line, you will notice they have requested that the termination not be less than 90 days. That was originally 30 days. I myself have no issues with that, but we wanted to put that back in front of you. And we will be looking for a vote to approve this. We will be coming back with an ordinance to allow me to sign the contract in the next meeting. So any issues with the change from 30 to 90 days? Okay. We need a quick vote. Do we need a vote? No, we just need a concurrence. So with that, we are for future agenda items. Does anyone have anything that we need to place on the next agenda? Rob?
Yeah, let's have Buxton Cubic Dodd come in to refresh us, and maybe even, I'm not sure if everybody's had the benefit of their sort of presentation and the modeling they did for the space needs and the division of space for the new city hall. And then so we could just leave it as a new city hall conversation. Because I think at the same time, Dwayne and I have been working on the points of sort of education to make available to the general public about this move. And so we'll be ready to present that as well.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? So that'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.